Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. My apologies. We had some technical difficulties. So I was talking and I wasn't realizing I was broadcasting. So forgive me for that. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to e-commerce, launching your online shop. This is in partnership with Troy Riemer of Red Clay Creative. This is our way of biz launching. We are here at the Small Business Support Center for Arlington County. We want to help our small businesses thrive and grow and be able to compete in a virtual world, and also helping them overcome challenges in the e-commerce space. So we're here as a resource. And Troy, thank you for coming along and joining us.
Happy to be here.
So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Troy. He's going to talk a little bit about e-commerce platforms, selecting the right theme for your website, as well as best practices in design and security. So Troy, I will let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, Alex.
So, thank you.
All right. Let me show my screen. Okay. Just making sure that you see the first page of my slides.
You're good, Troy. I see it.
Okay. So as Alex mentioned, I want to cover how to pick the right platform, how to select the theme, and then some helpful tips when you are working on your site, or things to consider. My company, Red Clay Creative, we help businesses with branding and websites, and that's our key focus. So without further ado, I'll get started. And also just want to say, there are things that I will say besides the slides. So take notes. I'll make sure to send everything to Alex afterwards, just in case you miss anything. But yeah. There we go. All right. So there's lots of platforms out there. BigCommerce, Wix, Shopify, Squarespace, Weebly, WooCommerce, which is a WordPress platform. And there's many options. So how do you select which one is right for you? And today I just want to cover two of them, WooCommerce and Shopify. And the reason why I want to focus on those two is because they have the biggest market share. And those are the ones that I run into with clients the most. And something to consider first is, are you testing an idea or growing a brand when you're thinking about the platform? Because you want to grow with that platform. You don't want to start out on one platform and then end up, having to switch over in a year or two, because it can be costly, time intensive, for many reasons. So think about that. And also make a list of features that you want before digging into the different platforms. That way you can kind of cross off what's needed and what's not, and pick the one that fits best for you. So with Shopify, there's some pros and cons, and this is an exhaustive list. I just wanted to cover some of the big things. A big pro is that it comes mobile optimized out the gate. So, a lot of shopping, as I'm sure you've heard, and browsing is done on mobile. And so you want to make sure that your site is mobile optimized too. And so that's a great pro with Shopify. It also has an easy setup. You can select the theme, upload your products, and really get selling within a day. So that's awesome. So it's a great way to test an idea. And has great inventory management. It can link up with your payment processors, like Square or PayPal. And it just is easy to keep track of everything all in one place. Cons, you may need to purchase apps for better functionality, and you'll run into this across all kinds of platforms. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on Shopify and WooCommerce, because they have a big app store. Just like a lot of people use iPhones because of the apps, same thing here. You want to make sure that you have a lot of flexibility for the future. Another con is that you're locked into pricing. So the way Shopify works is you pay a monthly fee and then a percentage of sales. And there's different levels to that, but you can't add a different payment processor on there. So it's like if you use something else in your shop, you can't use the same one for Shopify. Likely need a developer for customization. One of the things I'll get into later is, when you're selecting a theme, you want to make sure that it really matches the style that you're going after, because it's hard to make it bend to what you want it to be. And if you do need to do that on Shopify, you'll likely need a developer because it's not easily customizable for big customization. WooCommerce. So WooCommerce is on WordPress. It's a shopping cart just like Shopify. It just has a lot more customizability in it. So there's a wide variety of templates on WordPress that you can pick from. It's highly customizable, and that's one of the things I like about it, is that, when my clients are coming to me, anything that they have a vision for, we can pretty much execute through WooCommerce because of all the plugins and the support that's in there. It's very easy to customize. And another pro, as I touched on in the last slide, is you can control your payment processing costs better. If you use Square in your shop, you can also use it here, and you can sync the inventory together so that, if you make a sale in your shop or online, you can control your inventory. Cons, same thing as Shopify. You may need to purchase apps for bigger functionality. That's one of the things they get you in at the ground floor, and then they offer upgrades past there. Another con is you need to select a host typically. There's two different types of WordPress, self-hosted versus managed. And self-hosted, you can get through companies like GoDaddy or Bluehost or SiteGround. And then managed is just through WordPress.com itself. And I say that's a con because if you don't set your site up on the right server, you can run into a lot of speed issues. It may take a while to load the site. It just is it's another thing that you have to worry about. But if you select the right host, it's a great option. And then a con, because it is highly customizable, there's a lot of complexity to it too. So you can definitely learn it yourself, but you can kind of get stuck in the weeds too. All right. So after you pick a platform, both of those, Shopify and WordPress, are great, no matter which route you go. Typically, my rule of thumb is I would go with Shopify if you're testing an idea because you can get it up really quickly. And I would go with WooCommerce if you're going to add a lot of customizations later on and want to change things. So selecting a theme, here's some questions to consider. Will it grow with your brand? I touched on that at the beginning. Think about, right now you may be just thinking, oh, I want to get a shop up and make sales because I don't really have a choice. If I don't make sales now, I may not have a business in a few months, and that's okay. But generally, think about how it will grow with your brand so you grow with that platform. And does the theme match your style? Is it going to be attractive to your customers? And is there support available? So this is a big one that I ran into this week, actually. One of my clients, they bought this theme, and it didn't have any support. And so they were kind of stuck because they had invested all this time and money into building the shop out on that site, that they needed to make that work rather than figuring out, hey, I selected the theme that has a ton of forums, or I can call support if I need it. That would be a better option. And, brand is huge to us. So a brand is the gut feeling people have about you. It's the design, it's an experience, it's everything you do. And that transfers over to your site as well. Always think about the customer when you're creating a site and how they're going to interact with it and what they would want, not necessarily what you would want from it. And some tips, some best practices. So I touched on Shopify and WooCommerce are probably both going to need plugins. And there's two types. You have free plugins or premium plugins. My general rule of thumb is free is good for simple fixes. Like, stuck trying to think of an example, but it's good for simple fixes. Premium is good for more complex functionality. So whether that be like adding a pop-up to your for subscribers to your website, or filtering options for your shop. And then pick plugins that are tested with your theme and platform that offer support. So you see a theme there is that support is important, because if you ever run into an issue, you don't want to be stuck and you're not making sales, or your site crashes, or you have to start from the ground up again. Another important thing is search and filtering. And I want to show an example after going through this. So make sure that any platform or theme you select can support search. And you may need a premium plugin for better functionality. So I'll show an example. I'm sure you've all seen filtering before. So this is one of our websites, and this is a premium plugin that we added to it so that you can filter by price, size, brand, and it just is all fast and in real time. And so that's one of the things I'll usually go with a premium plugin over a free one, because you know it's going to work, you know it's going to have support. Another example here, we added a search bar at the top of the shop to make it as easy as possible for people to find what they want. So you type in Nirvana, that's one of the brands on their site, and it shows all the Nirvana products that they have, and you can easily click on it and go directly to that product. This makes it easy. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to find what they need. All right, going back to the slides. Retargeting and analytics. This really sucks when people overlook this. You know, I've had clients who've had a shop for 2 years and they don't have any analytics on their site because they forgot to install it. And that's 2 years of missed data. It's important to think about analytics because not everyone will buy the first time they visit your site. So you want to see what's happening. You know, what pages are people visiting? Are they leaving on the cart or at checkout? Where do they get stuck? Are they even going to your shop page? These kind of things. And there's a few different platforms that can do that. Google Analytics is free. I install that on all the websites that I work on. Facebook Pixel is great. Even if you're not running Facebook ads, you can still collect information from that and retarget those people at a later date. And then Quantcast recently introduced a free service that also tracks analytics. And here's an example. This is on the right, exactly from one of my clients' dashboards, redesigned to fit this slide presentation. But it shows household income, the U.S. average, and these are people that visited their site. So they know that the people spending money on their site, or at least going to their site, make over 100K in most instances. And it just helps inform the decisions that you're making as a business. Also, collect emails as much as you can. You want to grow your own audience in addition to making the sale. So as I touched on in the last slide, someone may come to your site and not buy first. They may come back. And so you want to collect their emails so that you can retarget them or send them a discount code to encourage them to interact with your brand more. You know, a lot of times people do this with a pop-up, get 20% off your order, enter your name and email, sign up. You can also send abandoned cart emails. So if someone leaves at checkout without checking out, you can, if they've entered their email, you can send an automated email to them that says, hey, and maybe some of you guys have received these, but it says, hey, you know, did you forget to check out? Here's your order. Finish the process. And when you collect emails, make sure you're sharing valuable content. No one wants to get spammed. You know, we've all received a ton of emails, and it's a battle to keep your inbox at zero if it's even possible for some. So make sure you're sharing valuable content that engages your brand. And hopefully when you share these newsletters or things like that, people will reshare it and you will grow your audience. And if you have emails, you can take that audience with you to different ventures. So, you know, it's like, let's say you're pivoting to something else, you can take that email list and use it for that. And offer coupons to encourage people. And this, touching on the newsletters, content is important. You know, whether you're writing blogs or just putting content in your emails, make sure that it engages your audience and it's valuable to them. I always ask that question. Would someone find this valuable? And does it match the data that we're using on the analytics dashboard? So blogs are important because people can find you through SEO or through Google without you even sharing it. It also gives you an excuse to send out a newsletter. Hey, check out our recent blog, come to our site. And, a good example of this, let me see if I can. Anyways, I got an email from Wayfair the other day. I get a ton of emails from Wayfair because I bought something once on there. And they said, oh, kitchen islands aren't needed anymore. Here's why. And so rather than going to their website for the shop, I went to the website to read the article because I was just curious why they're saying that. And so you can engage people in different ways other than just selling. And yeah, make it easier for yourself by letting the site do the selling for you. So if you have a blog, someone finds that blog, they're engaged, they like the content, and maybe there's a link to a product in there, and then they go to that product and then they check out. And all right, you've built a website or your e-commerce site. Now what? You got to spread the word. You got to get awareness out there. And there's a variety of ways to do this. This isn't all the ways, but these are some of the ones that came to mind when I was putting together this presentation. Digital ads are great. Right now, digital ads are a third, at least on Facebook, a third of the cost of what they were a month or two ago. So it's a great opportunity to get your name out there at a cheaper price than normal. Social media, a lot of people post, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all over the place. I would recommend picking two of those platforms to really focus on where your audience is. That way, you're not diverting your attention in too many different places, and you're growing a community based on where your audience already is. And same with Facebook groups. This can be a great way to create engagement with people other than just shopping. One of the big things right now is building community. And it may seem kind of time intensive and a waste of time now when you're just focused on getting a sale, but it will lead to sales later on, and it'll make it easier for you to make sales later on because people trust your brand and they like the content that they're getting from it. Google My Business is important if you have a retail shop or if you're online because it helps with your SEO. And then SEO, I think a lot of people have heard of that, search engine optimization. What you're doing there is you're basically making sure that Google can read your site and deliver information to the people searching on their platform. And there's Bing and Yahoo and all these other ones too, but we like to focus on Google a lot. Pinterest is great because Shopify and WooCommerce can both link to Pinterest. And so when you update your inventory on your site, it actually posts on Pinterest. And that's a different way to get people in the door without actually paying for extra ad spend. Because then your post will be there. If they're searching for something related to your product, they can find it through there. And sometimes they can even buy it directly on Pinterest. Newsletter, we touched on that one. Grow your audience and grow your community by delivering valuable information to them. And this may seem kind of counterintuitive, but direct mail is very valuable and it still works. And if it's the right business, consider that too for your online shop. And that's my presentation. From here, I just wanted to answer questions. And this is the tagline that my company has on our website. We believe that powerful branding builds trust in your business so it's easier for you to get new customers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you so much for this presentation. I had a few questions, but feel free if you'd like to. This is the interactive portion of the webinar, so feel free to chat your questions to us. One thing that he leaves out, and I really appreciate this, is actually the colors, the powerful branding, they move when you log onto the website. I thought that was a really cool tip. But anyway, it makes it a little bit more engaging. One of my first questions is around content and design. A lot of designers talk about this concept called design content, like building your website around your content. For an e-commerce platform, what kind of tips would you offer for design that would be effective for more service-oriented businesses versus product businesses?
That's a tough one. More service oriented than product based. With a service based business, you're going to have a lot more content on there explaining your service or walking people through the process. And so you just want to make sure that the design is engaging and not just a block of words. Versus for a product based, the focus should be on the product rather than, the text or anything like that. And the exception would be if it's a high ticket item, you're going to need to explain a little bit more or give people a story to buy into for that.
Gotcha. Cool. And then someone chimed in with the question, how can you move domains if you don't like how your current choice is working?
So sometimes if you're switching between hosts, like let's say I'll just use Bluehost and GoDaddy as an option. Let's say you're switching from Bluehost to GoDaddy. Sometimes they'll offer a service and they'll do it for you. But really, it's just a matter of moving the files from one place to another and then pointing the domain there. That's a simple explanation, at least.
Okay. Thanks. Another question is how do you maintain engagement with your clients without overwhelming them with information about your product?
That's a good question. When I'm thinking about content, I always like to think about how can it be repurposed in multiple ways. So, like, let's say you have a video, a 2-minute video. We could even use this video as an example. I could cut out this question and answer portion and repurpose that as one piece of content rather than sharing the whole thing at once. And so when you're making content, always think about how can it be repurposed in different ways. And then also just spread it out between places. So social media, newsletter, different things. You don't have to send it out every week. Maybe every 2 weeks works, or mix it up. This week I'm going to send a coupon. Next week I'm going to send a blog. Then I'm going to send another coupon. Just make it different so that people don't get bored and expect the same thing.
Right. And you don't even have to making it different doesn't have to necessarily be like generating new content. Like you said, it could be, like this video is a great example. It could a few slices of your presentation would work. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like maybe that leads them into another process. So I share 2 slides from this, and then that makes them want to watch the whole thing.
Right. And I think one idea I've seen a lot with other businesses is how they can engage, how customers can engage with the products is showing that can be a content. So, if you're a designer and you're, or if you're selling furniture, kind of, one content could be like showing them in a certain living room or, kind of design tips around that ottoman or whatever, whatever it is. So
that's a good point. It's something I didn't touch on is like when you have your product, make sure you show different angles. You have a gallery of images, show it in the living room, like you said, if it's a chair, or show on a white background too.
Gotcha. So the other question that we have is, if I don't have a product to sell right now, what type of website should I start with, and how easy is it to add an e-commerce platform once I'm ready?
I guess it would depend on the type of business, but I would say start with a WordPress website because it gives you customizability later on. Over 30% of all websites are on the WordPress platform already. So there's plenty of developers that can help you if you need it, or resources available too if you just want to learn yourself. But, there's other platforms like Squarespace and Wix are good too, but you don't want to get trapped in there. I have a lot of clients that have started there and then they hire us to move to a different platform because they've reached the limitations of it.
Gotcha. And then I'm also wondering I'm thinking, for new businesses, just kind of getting on the online space, am I understanding that one can create just a simple landing page that could, while they're getting the e-commerce platform up, but like if people stumble on them on the web, it's just simple landing page. You could have a simple, email collection form or something like that while they're
Yeah. We did that for a recent site. They're selling Madeleines, the French cookies, and they need to get approval from the state, in order to sell those on the web. And what we did is we put, like you said, a simple landing page, collected email, gave people a discount so that we could send those people an email once the site launched. And always think about, how am I collecting emails and how am I tracking things so that I can pivot or take advantage of that information later.
Right. Data is, it's like oil, it's power.
Yeah.
The other question we had is, how do you know which social media platform is best for your demographic? Is that just trial and error? Is there research behind that? How do you advise clients to select the right social media platform?
Yeah. LinkedIn obviously is focused on business. So it's like, if you're a B2B company, it's almost guaranteed that you want to be on there. Facebook is great, because just a lot of people are on there already. Instagram also, a lot of people are on there. Twitter, is one of those where it's a specific type of audience that wants to engage with your brand specifically, and you need to update consistently. So it's like, if you're just looking on putting out a few posts here and there, I wouldn't recommend Twitter as a main source. But if you're like sharing articles and content like all the time, even if it's not just directly from your business, that may be a good option. And then Pinterest, I really like, just because it has some good SEO parts of it that, people can find it easily on Google. They can find it through Pinterest, and it links back to your site. Yeah, so a little bit of trial and error, but those are some general rules of thumb.
Yeah. I think it also, also depends on who your, kind of main audience is. If you're, if you're selling dresses to, teenage girls, maybe Snapchat or Instagram might be more applicable to your business. Yeah. If you're particularly in B2B, I would focus on Twitter and LinkedIn, because those where those audiences. So, really just based on what your business is. And I absolutely love Pinterest for decorators, builders. Mm-hmm. I think that's an easy one for them to get in. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is, I'm building a company that will provide specialized services, not selling products. What are the best ways to begin reaching out to potential clients? The early stage
specialized services. I guess it depends on like what your goal is for reaching out to those people. If your goal is to make a sale, you'd go about it differently than if it is to build an audience to come back to your site later on. I think I would need to know a little bit more, but I would say sharing content that's valuable to that audience, whether it be from another site or your own, is always good. It could be a white paper, maybe. It's like they don't need to be super long. You could just write 2 pages, get a graphic designer to make it pretty, and then start sharing that with your audience.
Right. Very good. And I think, the other time, depending on what kind of services, blogging could be also helpful, as well, because it builds up your SEO and your keywords.
Yep.
Which actually, that was my other question. So I know, so a lot of the search engines will, as I understand, like Google particularly will, if you type in, I don't know, just a Cadillac, Cadillac car, something like that. It will pop up images from different sites within the Google platform. They're actually not, I'm trying to say this non-techie, they're not showing up on their own website, but it directs back to. So how does that, can you talk a little bit about how that works and the importance of keywords and images?
So for images, it's known as alt tags. And it's basically, you can add a tag in an image that describes that image so that a robot like Google can read it. Like the example you gave, Cadillac cars, you could just put Cadillac cars in there and then maybe it shows up. But maybe you want to make it more specific, say what type of car it is, because the more specific and relevant it is, the more likely they're going to show that content. Think about that too with titles. So like blog titles, that is like one of the big things that you should focus on the SEO side is, does this title, like, is this something people search? You know, like you could even like start typing in Google and figure out what your blog title is going to be based on what people are already searching.
Gotcha. One question I had, you mentioned, and I agree with this, you want to be able to have your site work for you to build an audience. So having the analytics and collecting of information, there are a lot of companies have, had issues with privacy and collection of customer data. So when you talk about privacy and collection of emails, what advice from a kind of a back end or tactics to help protect customers' information would you give to clients starting out? How can they, I guess, have a secure data process, privacy process from the very beginning in thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things with the shop, a lot of these payment processors like Square or PayPal, they take on a lot of that burden already, so that you don't actually house any of the credit card data or address or anything like that in your system. They house it, and then you don't have to worry about it getting hacked from your side. And then there's security that you can add to, but the only data that I usually recommend people have besides like the analytics from Google and things like that is email and name. So that, I mean, that's really all you need sometimes.
Right. So kind of the security by design. It's like if you don't need it, don't ask for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you don't want to, get caught with a cake in your face.
Exactly. And then the other question I had is when talking about host considerations, is there, for website hosting, is there, you recommended some. What else should the small businesses be thinking about when selecting a host for their platform?
Yeah. So a lot of times there's shared hosting and dedicated hosting.
Mm-hmm.
Always avoid shared hosting. It's usually the cheapest option, because that means that your site and domain will be hosted along with another site and domain, and you don't know what that other person is doing. So let's say you're sending emails out, and then all of a sudden they all start going to spam. And that could be because the other person on your server is causing spam or sending out spam messages, and you might not have done anything. So always get dedicated hosting. It's usually anywhere between like $20 or $30 a month for that, but it's definitely worth it because then you don't run into those problems.
And I assume capacity issues as well, correct? Or
yeah, exactly. So it's like if you're on a shared host, let's say the other site on there is getting 10,000 visits per month, and you're getting 2,000, and that they're eating up more of the bandwidth, so that your site loads slower then.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. And then my final question was around collecting emails. Do you have a certain provider that you recommend for clients for emails and collecting and sending out that's nice and integrated?
Yeah. My go-to is always MailChimp because it's easy to customize. There's constant contact, which is great too. But yeah, I would say those platforms, because you can start out for free, and then if you need to grow past it, you can upgrade it or things like that.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Troy, I thank you so much for joining us today and kind of sharing your knowledge on getting websites and e-commerce platforms set up. As I've said, a lot of our businesses they're pivoting, and they've been reaching out to us to come up with ideas and how do we in this new world that we find ourselves in, how do we still keep our business growing? How do we keep our goals in sight? So thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your information. For those on the call still, I do want to let you all know that this webinar will be recorded and we'll upload it to our YouTube channel. And I will be sending out the link in the presentation after the event to all those who registered. So thank you for joining us live. A few other things that we have coming up for any resources, BizLaunch, we may be virtual, but we're still here. Visit bizlaunch.org if you want to have a conversation with either myself, Alex Held, my colleague Lourdes Morales, or Tara Palacios if you need assistance in helping pivot, or if you have questions about other opportunities like our Arlington Small Business Emergency Grant information, which is more details, the application to come out next week. So please stay in touch with us if you need us. We don't go away, and we are here for you. So bizlaunch.org is the best way to get in touch. And there you will see all other resources available to businesses. So we thank you for joining with us today.
Thanks for having me. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Troy. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.